Before we dive into today's powerful message, don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with your friends and family, and leave a comment below with your thoughts or questions about what's coming. Many people are sensing that something big is on the horizon. But what does the Bible really say about the signs of our time? And how do global events connect with spiritual truths? In this video, we begin with a crucial reflection, not just about world politics, but about how understanding the Word of God helps us make sense of what's unfolding around us. Stay until the end and join the conversation. Your voice matters more than ever. Let's explore what might be just around the corner. Before the tragic events of September 11, 2001, there was no significant support among the American public or Congress for a war against Iraq. The general sentiment in the United States at the time was one of distance from Middle Eastern conflicts. Iraq was seen as a faraway nation with no immediate threat to U.S. interests. Despite the existence of certain political and strategic groups that were already eager to initiate a conflict with Iraq, their efforts lacked the necessary momentum. There simply wasn't enough public or institutional justification to launch a military campaign. Neither the population nor the legislative body were convinced. This raises a critical question: what exactly changed? What kind of event or influence was powerful enough to transform national opinion and generate widespread approval for war? The answer becomes clearer when we consider what happened next, a single day that altered the course of modern history and reshaped global geopolitics. But before that moment, it's important to recognize how reluctant and unprepared the United States truly was to engage in such a massive international conflict. The turning point came on September 11, 2001, a day that shocked the world and completely changed the mindset of an entire nation. After the devastating attacks on American soil, public sentiment shifted dramatically. Fear, confusion, and outrage swept through the country, and suddenly, the idea of entering a war in the Middle East was no longer unthinkable, it was expected. What could not be justified before now seemed necessary. The attacks served as a catalyst that mobilized not only the people but also the U.S. Congress, creating the political and emotional conditions needed to support military action. The population, once resistant or indifferent, was now united by a common sense of threat. This leads to a powerful and uncomfortable question: would such a major shift in public opinion have happened without a traumatic event like 9/11? And even more unsettling, could something similar be needed, or even orchestrated, in the future to justify new conflicts? The document raises a serious reflection, not just about history, but about what it takes to convince a nation to go to war. It invites us to question whether we are witnessing patterns that may repeat themselves, and whether future tragedies might be used to shape public consensus again. One of the most striking ideas presented in the message is the strategic use of fear as a mechanism of control. It suggests that fear is often more effective than direct action itself. While physical attacks create destruction, fear shapes minds, alters behavior, and manipulates public opinion over time. The implication is that fear doesn't just react to events, it is sometimes intentionally cultivated. Fear creates urgency, narrows people's thinking, and makes them more willing to accept decisions they would otherwise reject. Under its influence, entire populations can be led into war, surrender freedoms, or support drastic policies in the name of security. The idea here isn't merely that fear is a consequence of conflict, it's that fear is a prerequisite. A society that is calm and secure does not demand war. But one that is afraid? It becomes easier to direct. This reflection leads to an important question: are we being conditioned to fear certain outcomes or enemies, not just for protection, but for manipulation? Understanding the role of fear is essential to recognizing when emotional responses are being used to advance hidden agendas, especially when lives, rights, and the future of nations are at stake. While the September 11 attacks are widely recognized as the catalyst for U.S. military involvement in the Middle East, another event followed just days later, one that is less remembered, but equally important in shaping public fear: the anthrax letter attacks of September 18, 2001. Letters laced with deadly anthrax spores were mailed to media offices and to 2 U.S. senators, sparking nationwide panic. 5 people lost their lives, and 17 others became seriously ill. The psychological impact of these attacks amplified the already heightened sense of vulnerability, feeding into the narrative that America was under siege, not just from conventional enemies, but from unseen biological threats. This event reinforced the fear generated by the 9th of November, adding a new layer, the threat of biological warfare. It also gave weight to arguments for more aggressive national security policies and further military involvement abroad. The anthrax scare served as a second emotional trigger, a dark swan moment that helped push public and political sentiment toward war. It wasn't just about towers falling, it was about invisible dangers infiltrating daily life, targeting politicians, and silencing voices. The question remains, was this second wave of fear coincidental? Or was it part of a broader pattern designed to influence decisions at the highest levels? As public fear escalated in the wake of both the September 11th attacks and the anthrax letters, deeper questions began to emerge, questions about where these threats truly originated. One particularly controversial reflection suggests that the biological agent used in the anthrax attacks may have been linked to a US government laboratory, possibly under the control of intelligence agencies. According to certain reports at the time, investigations indicated that the anthrax strain used in the letters bore resemblance to material produced in a classified American research facility. This raised the alarming possibility that the attack, rather than being a foreign assault, might have been a domestic operation disguised as an external threat, a so-called false flag operation. If true, the implications are profound. It would mean that a psychological operation was carried out on the American people, not by enemies abroad, but by actors within, with the intention of shifting public opinion, generating support for military action, and justifying sweeping national security measures. This line of inquiry does not claim certainty, but it does call for vigilance and critical thinking. It challenges the audience to consider that some events may not be what they seem, and that public fear can be weaponized, not only by foreign enemies, but potentially by those entrusted with power at home. Among the most unsettling revelations is the existence of Project Bacchus, a classified US government initiative conducted between 1999 and 2000. This secret project was reportedly carried out by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, with the objective of determining whether it would be possible to build a biological weapons production facility using commercially available equipment. The result? The facility was successfully constructed and produced a biological agent strikingly similar to the one later used in the anthrax letter attacks. This fact raises an extraordinary level of concern. Was the technology or material developed in this simulation later involved, directly or indirectly, in the real-world terror events of 2001? The timing is hard to ignore. A government project simulating bioterror production ends just months before an actual bioterror incident shakes the nation. Whether by negligence, coincidence, or something more intentional, the overlap between simulation and reality is deeply troubling. Project Bacchus serves as a reminder that military simulations and experimental programs can have far-reaching consequences. It also fuels speculation about how certain crises may stem from internal planning rather than external threats. This leads to broader questions. Where is the line between preparation and provocation? And how do we discern when simulations become scripts for real-world events? The message warns of a looming threat, the potential for another dark swan event, for an unexpected, high-impact incident that could once again shift the course of global politics. Drawing a parallel with the aftermath of September 11th and the anthrax attacks, it raises the possibility that new crises may be needed, or even deliberately allowed, to justify future military interventions. This concept isn't about predicting exact dates or actions. Instead, it highlights how extraordinary events, particularly those involving mass fear or loss, often precede major geopolitical moves. And when fear reaches its peak, the public becomes more accepting of drastic solutions, including war. The concern is that a similar dynamic could be unfolding again. Are we on the brink of another emotionally charged event designed to steer public opinion toward conflict with a new target, such as Iran? And if such an event does occur, will it arise naturally, or be manufactured to serve a larger agenda? The reflection is not simply about what might happen, but about how history may be repeating itself. When patterns of manipulation, fear, and strategic disaster reappear, the question becomes not whether we are being misled, but whether we'll recognize it in time. According to the message, there are 3 specific scenarios that could act as catalysts, or dark swan events, leading the United States into a direct conflict with Iran. These hypothetical triggers are not predictions but rather strategic possibilities, based on past patterns and current geopolitical tension. A new event similar to September 11, 2001. Just as 9/11 shifted public opinion and justified war in the early 2000s, a comparable event, whether genuine or staged, could again mobilize national support for foreign intervention. The idea is that only a large-scale emotional shock would be enough to justify sending troops into another costly conflict overseas. A bioterrorism incident like the anthrax letters of 2001. The document recalls how fear of invisible biological threats created chaos and fear just days after the 9th of November. A similar event, involving deadly pathogens or engineered outbreaks, could renew fear and justify sweeping government actions, including military retaliation. A new geopolitical warning from a foreign leader. The third potential trigger is based on statements made by foreign leadership, suggesting that the absence of US cooperation in dealing with Iran could result in catastrophic consequences, possibly even another domestic attack. This adds a layer of external political pressure, hinting that warnings may sometimes foreshadow orchestrated events. These three potential triggers are presented not as mere speculation, but as serious points of reflection. If any one of them were to occur, it could reshape US foreign policy overnight and bring the world to the brink of another major war. The core message is clear: recognizing patterns is essential. When similar narratives reappear, it's no longer a coincidence, it's a strategy. The message brings to light a series of remarks made by a high-ranking Israeli official, years before the September 11 attacks, that have sparked intense speculation and concern. In a 2006 interview, the official reportedly stated that if the United States did not assist in dealing with the Iranian threat, it might experience consequences similar to the destruction of the Twin Towers in New York. Even more disturbing, a few years after the attacks, the same leader allegedly declared that the events of 9/11 were good for Israel. This comment was reported in an Israeli newspaper, raising alarm over the strategic advantage some foreign actors may have perceived in American tragedy. The implication is not just that these events were foreseen, but that they may have been calculated as opportunities. The official in question had a background in defense and intelligence, and was known for his ability to predict global shifts well in advance. According to the document, his words served as a strategic signal, perhaps even a warning veiled as prophecy. This leads to a sobering reflection: when global tragedies align with geopolitical goals, who truly benefits? And when foreign leaders speak of future events with such precision, are they merely predicting or preparing? Such statements, when viewed through the lens of historical hindsight, carry weight. They reinforce the idea that narratives are often shaped long before the public becomes aware, and that international power dynamics may be far more interconnected than they appear. The message emphasizes that the consequences of potential future events, particularly those involving geopolitical conflict, would not be limited to one nation. While the primary impact would naturally fall on those living in the United States, the ripple effects would be global, reaching far beyond American borders. For US residents, the concern is immediate: any large-scale crisis, especially one used to justify military escalation, could lead to domestic instability, restrictions, economic disruption, and potential loss of life. Those planning to travel to the US, or who have family members there, are urged to remain alert and informed. The possibility of being caught in a moment of crisis is no longer just theoretical, it's strategic. But the message doesn't stop there. It points out that Latinos, and other global citizens, are not immune to the consequences. In an interconnected world, economic and political changes caused by conflicts in one country can quickly affect others. Financial markets, trade agreements, energy prices, and diplomatic relations can all be affected. The text specifically warns that what happens in the United States can drastically affect life around the world too. The central idea is simple but powerful: no one is really detached from global events anymore. In the face of projected crises or growing tensions, being informed and prepared is no longer optional, it's essential. In a world where traditional media and institutions often filter or dilute the truth, seeking independent analysis becomes more than just a preference, it becomes a responsibility. The message makes it clear: we must think critically, question narratives, and value those who dedicate themselves to uncovering what others ignore or suppress. That's why your support is so important. If you found this video valuable, leave a comment below sharing your thoughts or questions. Your voice adds to the conversation. Don't forget to hit the like button, it tells the platform this content matters. And most importantly, share this video with friends, family, and anyone who needs to reflect on what's really happening behind the headlines. Your engagement is what keeps this channel alive, and what allows this kind of content to continue reaching those who need it most. Thanks for watching, and stay alert, stay informed, and come back for more.